Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Doctor Who Guide. I'm your host, Alex Patterson, and today I am very, very excited to have two very special guests with me today. Jay, Anthony, thank you so much for being here with me and joining me to talk about Forbidden Planet's range of 60th anniversary, the Diamond Collection merchandise. Jay, can you introduce yourself? Tell us quickly about what it is that you do and a little bit about your journey as a Doctor Who fan.
Cool. Well, thanks for having us. So I'm operations manager for Titan Merch, which is a sister company of Forbidden Planet, but work very closely with FP. I started up upstairs, so when I got promoted, I actually moved down the building. But so I worked for Forbidden Planet for 5 years and then kind of moved over. And the main license that I hold is Doctor Who. My journey started with Tom Baker when I was a kid. That was the first Doctor I remember and first saw. So yeah, I've kind of been with the Doctor since then.
Amazing, amazing. Started with teeth and curls, right?
Yeah.
So glad to have you here, Anthony.
I was the licensing manager at Forbidden Planet. I left in the middle of 2022. The great thing for me was the last assignment I got given from the directors of Forbidden Planet and Titan was to lead the ship kind of on Doctor Who 60th. And as a big fan since childhood, it was a really great way of bowing out of Forbidden Planet. And as we'll get into later on, that took a lot of planning. It was a lot of time over the last 12 months of my time there was organizing the 60th range.
So now that you know who it is that I am talking with, I want to skip forward to a later part of our interview because it talks about something that's really relevant to you today. Forbidden Planet is releasing 15 pieces of Doctor Who merchandise scheduled to come out later in the year exclusively for 24 hours on the Forbidden Planet website. So if you want to get those, links are in the description down below, and we're going to see and talk about those specific items, what has been released early for 24 hours only today on Doctor Who Day. So let's get back to the video.
So Wednesday the 23rd, and today's Doctor Who Day. And exclusively on filmplanet.com, we have just released these 15 items. They're only available for the next 24 hours, or depending when you watch this, Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, they go off sale. And you won't be able to buy them again until the relevant month for that Doctor. So, for instance, the 13th and Fugitive Doctors won't drop until October 2023. So if you buy it today, great, you've got it 12, 13 months in advance. And again, what we've done is I followed the same kind of format I'd done for MCM Comic Con, which is take one item from every Doctor to try and showcase everything. But there's a few other things. So some of the monster stuff in here is, although it's part of the collection, we had kind of we call it odds and bobs. It was other things that we weren't sure where to fit within the main collection, but released at the same time. So like Daleks come out for the first Doctor, Cybermen comes out like for the second Doctor, the Master print comes out for the third Doctor. That again has every Master story, including Power of the Doctor on it. And we went with the classic Delgado illustration to highlight them. So all of this is for 24 hours only. You don't have to wait until the month the Doctor comes out to get it. So this will all get ordered after it comes off the web, and you'll get it within 2 to 3 weeks in the UK, pending the postal service. So that was something that a few people were kind of, when I was explaining it, was getting a bit confused. It's like, no, you don't have to wait 13 months. So just like as if you went to Comic-Con, MCM, you could get it early. So yeah, so there's your Bodies of Forbidden. So I held this back from the first Doctor's drop because I wanted something for the first Doctor. The second Doctor, although it comes out tomorrow on Thursday, you can order it, a bit earlier. And then the rest is so third Doctor will is due out in January. The fourth Doctor is February, as I'm looking up there. 5 and 6 is March. 7th is April. 8th is May, June, although they're the wrong way around. So the War Doctor comes out with the 8th. July is the 10th Doctor. And so a couple of these things I said right at the very beginning about the other Doctors I didn't mention. So we are releasing a Meta Crisis Doctor shirt because he is a Doctor. So that comes out in at the same time as the rest of the David Tennant stuff.
Oh my gosh. And there's the Curator.
And the Curator. So I'll pull up a shot because this follows the same format as the other Celebration shirt. So I'll get the art print up and show you. But it has got Tom on it as the Curator. So yeah, so that's why there was like 17, Doctors, because we had the War, Fugitive, the Meta Crisis, and Curator. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's again some great fan nods. Meta Crisis was on screen for 5 minutes. It's like, hey, he's a Doctor. Again, the Curator was for a few minutes on screen, but you can't get enough Tom.
Nope.
So so all this is online to order now. Again, I must stress that anyone outside the UK won't be able to order the 8th Doctor mug, unfortunately, but there's plenty of everything else.
Yes.
7th Doctor shirt. When I was showing this to some people, they was like, "Oh, is it a secret shirt?" It's like, nope, that is the shirt. And there's like a badge to go. There's a nice like round glitter badge to go with it. It's just a very simple, top of his umbrella.
Right. I got it.
The Mara again was a fun one that we put in, and the enamel badge looks like that as well. So
amazing.
That'll be coming out. Again, once we'd sort of covered those initial monsters, it was like, right, now we sort of get into like the secondary sort of monsters and that, but it was the ones that are a bit more real fan. If you're not a hardcore fan, you're gonna be like, what is that? It's a snake.
Yep.
Yeah. And then some little sort of Easter egg things on the back of the 12th Doctor badge. We've got "Listen" scrawled on there.
Amazing.
So there's little things like that we added in as well, little sort of Easter eggs across some of the Doctors that have just made a nice little, it's something a little extra.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, what a fun way to celebrate Doctor Who's birthday. Oh, Braveheart Tegan.
Now, Braveheart Tegan, I wanted to just release a piece of celery on an enamel badge. And it was like, okay, fans who get it, they get it. But obviously I couldn't release a piece of celery that was kind of like, 9 inches tall as an enamel badge. So it was like, well, brilliant, let's have Braveheart Tegan, And what was lovely in The Power of the Doctor was, he said the quote again.
Yes.
So it was like, great. So this actually covers your original 5th Doctor, and for the new era and for the Jodie era fans as well.
It's funny you should mention that, because whenever I cosplay the 5th Doctor at conventions, I take great care to I put an actual stalk of celery in my pocket and carry it around all day. And so I would have loved a 9-inch enamel celery to save me having to keep a wilting piece of celery in my costume.
And then how big I can blow it up, but there's the 4th Doctor. So again, it keeps very much mid to late and early 80s for Tom. So that was great being able to do all that.
I love that.
Yeah, so this is the 24 hours on the net, and then it disappears. Everyone that orders will get their merch. It will get ordered and get sent to them. And if you don't order it on time, then you have to wait. like I said, it's the relevant month to get this stuff. So
Amazing.
it's really nice to see people, especially obviously in London. I kind of see the odd person with like a First Doctor shirt because I had that at MCM. It's like, brilliant. Well, I know where you bought it because it's only just hit stores, So to see people out, especially when I'm in visit the London store, and to see the fans there. And I've been to gigs around the country as well, and I've seen not this range, but I've seen other shirts that we've made, and it's like, brilliant. I know where you got that from.
That's
So it's
so
actually
fun.
really nice to see this, out in the real world. Yeah, that's Doctor Who Day.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Hello, everyone. So if you're watching this on Doctor Who Day, definitely check out those 15 exclusively available items on Forbidden Planet. And if you've already done that, we'll hop back into the interview right where Anthony was telling us how he became a Doctor Who fan.
Apologies, you can't see me. I've just moved house and my internet is not very good. I've been a fan all of my life. My first memory was watching Legopolis, aged 3 or thereabouts, with my dad. As a child of the wilderness years, I don't really have a favorite Doctor, because one month you'd have a Colin Baker, then next month you'd have a Troughton or a Hartnell or a Pertwee. So I got a great mixture of different Doctors. But I do say to people that the era that I hold closest to my heart is probably McCoy's, just because it was the world that was outside my window when I was a kid, and I'd watch something like Survival. I could see that it was the same cars that were driving past me on the street, as opposed to something like the very, very old, at that point, 30 years old, Hartnell era. Just to introduce the range, I would say that it's a collection of apparel and lots of different smaller pieces of giftware, primarily enamel pin badges, and collectible art cards and postcards in sets. But we're supporting it with stuff like coasters and mugs and little tiny other bits and bobs that you might see over the course of the next year, travel pass holders, etc. But primarily it's led by apparel and enamel pin badges.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so do you want to, Jay, just, kind of give us an overview if somebody's never heard of this 60th anniversary diamond collection?
So start of it, as a brief history to it quickly, we can get a bit more into it later, was we wanted to up what came out in the 50th. So as a company, we hadn't embarked on anything this big before. So it was over a year ago now. So we're probably talking about, give or take 18 months. Myself and Anthony were just sort of chatting. It's like, right, we've got to do something for the lead up to the 60th. And we were throwing ideas around, and we wanted to cover every Doctor. So that's everyone, including like the War Doctor, Fugitive Doctor, another Doctor that I will reveal in a bit when I show you some stuff that we've got coming up. And then we kind of hit a wall, and we were like, there was something missing. And then we got assets for screenshots from all the Doctor's title cards, and that was it. That was that missing piece that we then was like, that's it. That's the background. So then we started to work on how we wanted the images to go. So then to backtrack a little bit, Titan had we'd released some Doctor shirts years before, which was picture of the Doctor, and it would say it'd have a first, second, and so we sort of took that as that was our starting point, and then we evolved from there. So the whole collection, it runs for 13 months, starting this month, and we cover 16 Doctors. So obviously some of them had to kind of double up along the way. 17 Doctors. So yeah, so some of them doubled up along the way. And then we started to work on sort of the concepts, and we got, I've still got them all, the kind of drawings that we throw around to each other, and Anthony would come down and be like, oh, so on my board in front of my desk, it'd be like, got this idea, and we'd kind of just throw things about. And then our sort of creative juices really started to flow once we thought, actually, we've got something big here. So it covers your kind of general fans. So there's something for, if you just like watching Doctor Who and you have a favorite Doctor, there is something for you. And if you're a real hardcore fan, there's some real deep cuts that we've released as well. So we really do cover pretty much every sort of fan that we could think of. And that was it. So then we sort of started to plan out, which Doctors were coming in which months and where we would double up. And it kind of made sense for certain Doctors to be paired with others. For instance, The Fugitive and the 13th, that's the Fugitive's era, so they come out in the same month. And that's the basics of the next 13 months. So each month, like say, we drop a new Doctor. Anthony, do you want to add?
For us, the great thing about the 60th is it feels that everything that Titan has done up to this point has led up to the 60th. So that real comprehensive range of merchandise that they put out in 2013 really has guided where we go in 2023. So they decided back in 2013 to do one range per Doctor per month. And we've kind of had that as our skeleton throughout this process of following a similar thing. So the 50th range, we really do have to give thanks to, some of Jay's predecessors in Titan merchandise. So Matt Buss, Andrew Sumner, the whole design team that led the 2013 range, because although we haven't used any of what they did, the general principle has guided us for 2023. Me and Jay have released the flashback collection, the anniversary collections, but the great thing about those product ranges was we were able to research what the fans wanted. So, for example, we know that Doctor Who fans really, really don't like white t-shirts, but for whatever reason. And so we always avoid as best we can white t-shirts now, but we didn't know that going in. So 2013 hadn't released stuff like art prints or postcard sets or enamel pin badges. And all of those are really collectible items for fans. They love all of those things. We have a greater fan insight in terms of product categories now and what kind of excites people. And one of the great successes that Jay's had recently was when Flux aired. Jay did a really limited edition postcard pack of 250, 500 units, something along those lines. And it was an exclusive online and it sold out within 24 hours. So we really did know that fans love and engage with all of these different product types.
So you're listening to the fans, you're getting that feedback, you're learning from your past launch with the 50th. And I think that that's a really a sign of just any successful business is learning to, pivot and take that customer feedback and say, what, we don't like those white t-shirts. We want to go with a different thing. And one of the things that, Anthony has told me about, one aspect of the range that you really wanted to do was you wanted to not just, represent each Doctor, but in the design elements of the various products that you're releasing, you wanted to represent their era.
So the era appropriate thing, the previous shirts that we'd done for the 50th were it was just like picture of the Doctor, first Doctor. There was nothing that screamed this is when the Doctor was about. So the first and second, yes, we kept very quite monochrome because that's how you saw the episodes. So first Doctor, the other thing that we'd done once we got the backgrounds and we knew that was an element, we took each Doctor's logo and used the same font to create like the first Doctor or the second Doctor, and as I pick a few out, you'll see how it works. So that in itself kept with the era. And then the other thing we wanted to do was, in the past, I've merged various companions and monsters and such like, but there was a lot that had never been on a t-shirt or never been merged before. So around the swirl, we put as many of the enemies, the monsters, the companions as we could. So just to highlight them as well. So things like War Machines have never been merged, but it's like we got it on. There was only so much obviously we could physically do, but it was like this was to highlight, you know, everyone else. So
that is so cool.
So yeah, for instance, like War Machine's never been, you know, the real.
Just to chip in a second with regards to all of the companions and the monsters, this was one of the ways that we really wanted to divide the range from 2013. The 2013 range was great, but it focused solely on the Doctor. And an interesting fact, the BBC no longer like licensees to use the numeric version of first or second, etc. So the 2013 range will have had one ST. This is obviously the first Doctor. So visually, we look different already. We've already spoken about the black T-shirt versus the white T-shirt, so we switched across. But we just thought, didn't we, Jay, that it was a really nice way of honouring as much of those eras as possible. We would have loved to have filled in everything. We would have loved to have had all the monsters on there. But what would have happened is you would have had Hartnell and Tom Baker, their T-shirts, you wouldn't have been able to read anything on the T-shirts because it would have just been covered in monsters. And then somebody like Colin Baker's T-shirt would have been very sparse, just because of the number of adventures. So we just made a call that we would pick out some of our favourites, and also we'd pick out some more obscure ones. So what we tried to do is every T-shirt features a primary villain that features for the first time in that era. So the Master would be on John Pertwee's T-shirt, for example. We cheated a bit with the Cybermen because we didn't want to put the Daleks and the Cybermen on one design, so we spread the love. So Pat Troutman gets the Cybermen on his, which I think is a fair game, considering that they only really feature at the tail end of the first Doctor's era anyway, and they're so prominent in Troughton's era. So we just thought this was a really nice way of just honouring some of the companions, not least because unfortunately since 2013 we've lost so many of the older companions. So, you know, somebody like Victoria, for example, it's quite nice now that on the Troughton design, we really can. You know, it's a very, very minor tribute, but it's on there in some form, just so we can say, you know, everybody's got their favourite Doctor, but I think it's also true that everybody has their favourite companions, and they're not necessarily compatible. So you might love Sarah Jane, but your favourite Doctor might be Troughton. So we just thought this represents all of the main series stars in a really nice visual way.
Absolutely. When I first saw the shirt, I was like, there's something in cursive on there. And then you look closer and you're like, oh my gosh, I love that. I mean, that you're able to represent all of those different characters. I see Salamander, amazing.
So some of these we have also made. So we have a monsters range which we started before we started work on this, and we started like Dalek, Cybermen, the kind of the big ones, and then as the ranges went on, we started to take other monsters to add to it. So for instance, on here you see that it's like the Yeti's on there. So for the next range of monsters, we do have.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And the enamel badges, as Angie was saying earlier, because it was a range that we didn't have access to back when we done the 50th. And they're so big, enamel pin badges are such a collectible market, and the characters really transpose onto the badges. So yeah, the Yeti comes out. in the same month that the second Doctor's come out.
Oh, that's incredible.
And then, so what I'll do now is I'll quickly go through a few of the other Doctors, so you can see how jumping back to the era point, how the era goes. Then I think we'll discuss so there's a second range of t-shirts. This we've called the Celebration range, which celebrates the Doctor. And then there was other things we wanted to do, which then became a second range of t-shirts for each Doctor. So which was called the quote. We named just like the quote shirts. So what I'll do is I'll quickly go through. So you've seen the first, and that's and then what I'll do is then jump back and then show you the other things that we've done, like the deep cuts and some of the other merch for these. So the first Doctor's out. So if anyone's been online to forbiddenplanet.com, they would have seen all of this. The second Doctor comes out on Thursday. So this is a couple of days early for seeing this.
Amazing.
And then so you've had the monochrome, and then when we hit third Doctor, you can see it's very 70s. It's that lurid color. It's not sharp, and it looks like you are watching the episode from the era, because of the just the way that the colors are. So the third Doctor is due out in January. These will be online to pre-order in the middle of December. So you're getting a bit of a preview here.
Amazing.
And again, this is where the background comes into play, and some of these the monsters and people have never been anyone's done anything. Now, with an interesting thing with Bessie is we could put the name on there in text, but we couldn't actually use Bessie because it's not licensed. So again, that was something we wanted to do. We wanted to do a badge, but we couldn't because the person that owns Bessie just hasn't licensed the image. So there were things like that when people said, well, why haven't you done this? And it's kind of like there are reasons, and everything we've done, and this was in the planning stages. It's not just we forgot. It literally is, everything is justified somewhere. So yeah, we got Bessie on there.
Amazing.
So that's the third Doctor, and then for each t-shirt we've got a sweatshirt as well.
Yep.
So you can see how it went from monochrome to now we're hitting the 70s.
Yeah.
So you've gone from monochrome to here, and then I'm going to jump to then we get to the 6th, and it's kind of crazy colors.
Whoa.
And it's like, and this is a really good example of how we took the logo and changed it so it kept that style, it kept the font and the design, but obviously we've used it to 60th, so 6th Doctor, sorry. So again, it keeps in the era of Colin. It looks very mid 80s. So yeah, it's every month it's like it goes. So that's just a brief example of how we've taken that and then really made that part of the design as well, not just the same sort of text. But obviously this range all follows the same kind of feel and design. It's so that's why that's the Celebration range. So then the quote range, we was like, well, there's other things we want to do because there's like famous quotes from the Doctors, and we've toyed with it before. As tight, and we've released some shirts in the past that have had a quote on, but this really went to town on this. So for the first Doctor, so because it was the first release and it's the first Doctor, we went quite big on it. This was one, so this is the enamel badge, art print mug, coaster, t-shirt.
Amazing.
And then we thought, well, actually, that's good, but what about one day I shall come back?
Yes.
So we then thought, well, okay, well, let's put that on a shirt. So that's got a back print because the quote was so long. But that's really nice. And again, it's kind of, now we're starting to get a little bit more into that kind of deeper cut that I was sort of talking about. And then as a really deep cut.
Love it.
This was something else that we were like, oh, wouldn't that be good to have it as a poster, as an art print? And it's very simple. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, it's kind of like, there's other things you can buy. But a few people that are fans that I showed this to straight away were like, that's brilliant. And it's literally just a fleeting, camera shot. It's a post on a wall. But again, it covers those real hardcore fans. So yeah, we went big with Hartnell because he was the first. And then for Pat.
Oh.
So we went with that. Now, because again, we've only done, we'd only designed one, but we started to diverse a little bit from the quote because that's a big quote to put on a badge or a coaster. So then we was like, well, let's have two. So it was, the badge, which is glitter. The background is glitter, so it looks like stardust and stars. And again, it's like a real kind of nice thing to do.
Alex, me and my wife, we've been doing a marathon of Who from the beginning. She's never seen the originals before, and in the background, because we get samples of all of this stuff, we addressed our living room with various William Hartnell product. And then when we reached the end of the 10th Planet Part 4, there was a sad moment where we took it all down and we replaced it with Pat Troughton. So during our marathon of Pat Troughton, we're using the Oh My Word coaster. We've got the mug out and his celebration mug, and we've got one of the art prints dotted around. So we'll keep changing them over whenever we reach the next Doctor on our marathon.
That is the sweetest thing. Oh my gosh, I love your redecorating. Oh my goodness, amazing.
And there was another kind of a little deep cut that we've done. So all this second Doctor merch will drop on Thursday on forbiddenplanet.com.
Just to chip in a second, so I'm sure that Jake can talk you through the schedule for the next year, because it was ever shifting whilst we were designing. But one of the things we wanted to do was make it sequential, but also, as I'm sure Jay will talk about later on, we really wanted to make sure that conventions and other smaller events dotted across the year, they were represented with merchandise. So we've already had the first one of those, which was MCM Comic Con in London. But fingers crossed, you should see more of those events throughout 22 and 23, where we take some of the range with us and sometimes offer them as exclusives, but also offer them out as a second chance to buy. So sometimes we might have a sellout design in store that we might bring back later on to a convention.
This is all out there, but this will show you across all the Doctors. So what we've done for MCM Comic Con in the end of October was, so we had a BBC stand that we ran, and we wanted to highlight the whole range, and obviously something there for every Doctor. So we sat and kind of, I had all these designs and cut out pieces of paper, and we was moving them around and sort of like, which is the best to have on each day. So we split them. Although this is in order, they wasn't released like this. So we done 5 per day, and we just mixed them all up. But this will highlight the whole, the whole range. And it's good to see, we've got the first Doctor shirt, which you've seen, and, the War Games mat. There's your reverse of polarity.
I love that. Reverse of polarity.
So all this is coming out in its relevant month. But we release it. So some of this came out, like 13 Doctors and due out to October next year. So anyone that bought any of this is getting it months and months in advance, and some of it might not be released again. So it was a exclusive launch for the product. There's your Jelly Baby badge.
Oh my goodness.
Jelly Baby's badge. And then so this is the quote. So this is the Fifth Doctor's quote shirt. So he's not due out until March. But again, anyone that bought this got it 6-7 months in advance. So that was the Fifth Doctor. So the sixth.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing. Seventh hoodie.
Like the big Doctor there. Oh.
Your eighth. And the War Doctor. So those two, so the eighth and War Doctor come out in the same month in May, because again, where we was trying to pair Doctors together, where there's some obvious ones, and then also because of episodes that they may have appeared in, or just how things fell, it's like those two come out then. Ninth Doctor badge.
Hey. Fantastic. Oh my gosh.
I'll come back to the Impossible Planet in a second. We'll kind of explain that. We've got 10 minutes, a little bit more detail in a minute to how we got that. Our call badge. There, and 13th.
Look at them. Oh my gosh. Love it.
So that was the MCM range that we done.
Wow.
So it highlighted everyone, and everyone that came up, there was something for everyone. I mean, there were some people coming up, this is brilliant. This, you've covered every Doctor. That's my favorite Doctor. So that was the whole point of that. But you had to go over the whole weekend, because certain things were on certain days, and obviously, and they sold out. So yeah, it was a real good launch for the whole range as well, because it's the first time that any of this had been seen in public. So it was a great weekend.
That's amazing. What a great way to showcase the whole range. It represents each Doctor equally, and I love that. And I love that, like, my takeaway from this is obviously, you put such an incredible amount of care and thought into this that, like you're saying, if you're not seeing a reference or something, it's not because it's an oversight. It's because there were specific reasons. And I love the calls that you've chosen to make with what to include, and the design. It's just so clearly put together by the fans for the fans. And I love that.
Yeah, and the BBC were so behind this, because when we put the concept to them, it was like, okay, that sounds interesting. And then that was it, we were off. So the first time we presented this to them, they were like, unbelievable, because there was something for everyone, and the passion that was behind it and put into it by the both of us. They saw that it wasn't just us sort of going, oh, hey, look, here's some Doctor Who product. And so, yeah, they were so totally behind the whole thing. And we also got some input from a couple of people at the BBC. The guy that I speak to with the approvals, Ross, was like, hey, how about this? How about that? So we didn't just stick to us. We did ask other people. So Anthony was asking, he's well, I think your wife, I think Karina, come up with some ideas as well, didn't she?
One of the ideas that my wife did contribute was the Fantastic badge. We didn't know how to make it work, because Fantastic is quite a long word to put on an enamel, and my wife Karina had the idea that we split it up so it says Fantastic, because one, Eccleston does emphasize the fan when he says it, but two, there's quite a nice nod there that it's specifically a product made for fans.
That's great. Oh my gosh, I didn't get that until now. Oh, love that.
One of the other things, I don't think we really struggled on what to do for David Tennant's quote t-shirt, because there's already quite a lot of really great quote t-shirts out there. And this was before we knew David was coming back in the series. We hadn't, when we were designing this product in late 21, early 22, we had no insider knowledge he was coming back. But what we decided was Forbidden Planet has an anniversary in 2023 as well. It turns 45. and Doctor Who being 60, we thought, well, there's an opportunity here to kind of have a nod at Forbidden Planet's anniversary as well. And Forbidden Planet had a storefront poster designed by an artist called Brian Bolland, who is very famous in comic book circles for drawing The Killing Joke, which is often referred to as the most famous Batman story. And his original storefront poster was various monsters gathered around, and they say people like us shop at Forbidden Planet. So we decided to have a bit of fun and kind of mix David Tennant into it with lots and lots of ood, and play off the Impossible Planet theme. And that was one of the convention exclusives, the art print that we took with us. And it sold out in, 3 hours, Jay? We had 100 plus units, and it sold out in three hours. So it was phenomenally successful. So much so that we were asking ourselves, well, should we really have brought more than 100 and whatever it was? But you never know. There's an MCM next May. If we attend, we could potentially do a second print run for that convention. It was an MCM exclusive, so that would be fine.
That's the art print. So there is a T-shirt, there is a mug, and so we, as Zanny said, Forbidden Planet turns 45 in July, which just happens to be the 10th Doctor's month. So they're all fell in quite nicely.
Yeah. It was an odd moment of serendipity.
Perhaps an ood moment of serendipity.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we should flag at some point is, as well, is the amount of work that our designer Simon Grove put in. So he's based in New Zealand. He's a freelance designer that works with Forbidden Planet and Titan, but also works with lots of other retailers and licensees across the globe and makes fantastic merchandise. The print we were talking about before, the David Tennant Impossible Planet print, is his illustration. So he drew that from scratch using reference photos. But stuff like the Matt Smith design that we have all comes from his mind. Typically what happens with a t-shirt is you get access to assets from the BBC, and you're allowed to use those assets in any way you see fit. But this is a bespoke range of product where the assets they've not been bent. We've completely used wholly original designs from the mind of Simon. And the great thing for me and Jay, I think, was just having a lot of fun briefing Simon and giving him a little bit of space to come up with something. So we would have said, for example, we want a t-shirt that says ... are cool, and we want these component parts added. And then he goes away and he researches, and he's not a Doctor Who fan, but he does the research and he does it really well. And you can't tell he's not a Doctor Who fan when the product comes in. And that's been, I think, the most fun element of this project was me and Jay kind of coming together to say what designs we wanted, what focus we wanted on specific things. So for the celebration t-shirts, what monsters do we feature? And for the quote t-shirts, what quotes do we have? But more than that, it's been a real joy just to see Simon's designs come in. I remember every day I'd race. Jay's office is one floor below mine, and I'd race downstairs with a printout of Simon's new design and saying, "Oh, this has come in," and Jay would very proudly pin it to his wall, so the collection would grow and grow and grow. So that from my side was real nice. And also, I don't often keep samples of product. A little bit like Alex, my house is full of DVDs and books and lots of other stuff, so I don't really have space for mugs and whatever else. But I've made space for all of the 60th stuff because it's addictive. Once you've got one, you end up in a position where you end up with all 16 mugs or whatever. I think we have 30 mugs tucked away in a cupboard somewhere now. And I think that's going to be one of the real joys from the retail side. I don't know about you, Jay, but it's just going to be a lot of fun just to sit down and look at what people bought. Did people buy everything? Did people pick and choose doctors? Was there a specific type of design they liked? So did they like illustrations? Did they like the photographic? Did they like the real in-universe stuff, like the Greatest Show in the Galaxy hoodie? It's gonna be real fun just to see what is popular, because if we've done our job right, it should all be equally as popular. Just because there's something for everybody. We've tried to cover as many different bases in terms of product designs and characters used and design types and whatever else, that over the course of the next 12 months or so, you should be able to find something that, as a Doctor Who fan, kind of takes hold of you and drags you to the till and makes you purchase.
Absolutely. I definitely think it's going to be hard for any of us to resist the urge to collect. And like you're saying, it could be all the enamel pin badges or the art prints, or I really like these coasters. So there's something for everybody.
So we'd already done the Dalek, but what we also done was took those, like the iconic ones, and literally put every Dalek story ever, and it's right upstate with Power of the Doctor. So this came out when the first Doctor came out as well in this month, to highlight that. And again, as Anthony was saying, the art prints we didn't have access to, and they've been really popular for us across the licenses that we had and Forbidden Planet. So again, it's a really nice piece of art to have. So we took some of those monsters and actually done a little bit more with them.
On the Every Dalek story ever, there's actually an Easter egg for Alex specifically, because when we were designing this, I said to the designer, put the DVD font of the Dalek Invasion of Earth, because I know that there's somebody on YouTube who will absolutely love that. That's the version of that title sequence that you've the title treatment that you've featured. So the Dalek Invasion of Earth is there for you, Alex, specifically.
That is so cool. Hello, everyone. So due to internet problems when recording this, you can't tell because I had Anthony record his audio on his end, but due to internet problems at the time, I did not properly take in what Anthony was saying. He specifically chose a font for me. That the reason the font is that way for the Dalek Invasion on the t-shirt, on the art print on the Switch, is for me. That is so amazing. Oh my gosh. That's incredible. Oh my gosh. I am not okay. That is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
The other thing we've done is obviously there was only so many stories we could put on. So where we've got that little bit cameo only, literally if it was in a scene and a Dalek just, for instance, just went past and that was it didn't count. But if it was a part of the story, so even if like the Dalek was only in it for a few minutes, it counts. But yeah, if it was just a passing kind of, because we would have had so much on there. Again, there was some choices we had to make in the creative process. So yeah, and it was the same with the Cyberman one.
Right, because I see the Waters of Mars, the Whiting River Song, things they don't necessarily think of as Dalek stories, but they do have Daleks in them.
It was a fun one, this one, because we were very conscious. These three designs, every Dalek, every Master, and every Cyberman, were the three T-shirts that were going to be, I'm loath to use the word nitpicked because that sounds negative, but they were the ones that were going to be analysed the most by fans. And so we did have to draw a line at certain points and say, well, look. So, for example, we were limited in certain ways. The BBC wouldn't allow Cyberwoman on the Cyberman T-shirt because it was Torchwood. And we argued the case and said, well, we're just featuring text. Can we please have it? There's no image from the episode. And they said, no, it's a separate license. You can't put Cyberwoman. Twice Upon a Time, we got an interesting comment online when that one launched, because somebody said you should have put Twice Upon a Time on the Cyberman T-shirt, because obviously they remounted
sequences from the 10th planet at the beginning. But one of the things that me and Jay had agreed was that if the Daleks were only in the previously bit, so for example, David Tennant's Children in Need special in 2005 features the Daleks in the previously on section, but we haven't put that specific minisode onto the t-shirt because the Daleks have no impact on the story. And it's the same principle for Twice Upon a Time. The tricky thing there is they obviously did remount that footage. So it was, we did and ah, didn't we, Jay, whether we do put it on? Because it was original Cyberman footage, but it was also exactly the same as it would have been in the 60s, just shot color HD. So we decided not to feature it. So those ones were quite fun because we did have quite a lot of fans saying this title treatment was wrong, or you've missed this off, or you've not featured this. But I think we went into those knowing full well that they were the ones that would incur the most wrath if they weren't correct. And I think that we probably got as good a compromise as we could do. We would have loved to have featured Big Finish in the Doctor Who magazine comics on there as well. But unfortunately, again, due to licensing, the BBC turned around and said it has to be the television episodes only. We couldn't feature the Peter Cushing movies on there, even as an Easter egg. Nothing other than the TV Doctor Who was allowed to be on any of this merchandise. Which meant, in some ways, it was useful because for the Daleks, I think there's been something like 70 Big Finish stories, if not more. So the T-shirt would have just been covered by Big Finish. So that it was actually quite useful just to contain it to the TV. But we knew going in that there would be something missing. One of my relatives loves William Hartnell's Doctor and asked why we didn't feature. I can't remember the character now, but one character, one monster on the first Doctor. And I just had to say, well, look, we had to be selective. And what we tried to do was feature, the main villains that you associate with that era. So Daleks, Zarbi, for example, and then feature some obscure ones. So we've got on there, for example, the Rill. And one of my mission statements, I don't think Jay knows this, but one of my mission statements, when we were making these T-shirts, we were still in a world where Eagle Moss were releasing those really great figurines. And I wanted one villain on every T-shirt that would be at the very bottom of Eagle Moss's list. So we could say we've done something that even Eagle Moss haven't touched. So the Rill would be the first Doctor example. Or on the second Doctor, there's some really obscure, the Space Pirates are on the second Doctor one, which I don't think Eagle Moss got round to. So we did try and do something that we could just say, well, look, this has literally never been merchandised before. Conscious, it's just the name only, but I think in spirit you can count it that, oh look, there is a piece of merchandise now with the Rill on. The two ranges really do complement each other because the Celebration range is about the all-encompassing Doctor era. So everything to do with the William Hartnell era is on that T-shirt. Title, treatment, the Doctor, friends, enemies. If not a comprehensive list of enemies, at least a good representation. With this range, we wanted to home in on specific moments, or you'll see for some examples later on, something that is intrinsically Doctor Who. So there is a Jelly Babies T-shirt, which although technically is a fourth Doctor release, multiple Doctors have said that quote, or multiple Doctors have said reverse the polarity. So it was a case of celebrating moments, making them look era appropriate, but also making them look, and this word, it sounds negative, but I don't mean it in this way, but making it look generic enough that grandma comes in off the street, sees it, recognizes it's a Doctor Who T-shirt, doesn't necessarily recognize that it's a John Pertwee design on the reverse the polarity example, but looks at it and knows it's Doctor Who. So these the William Hartnell ones are very specifically William Hartnell, but some of the later ones we'll get to. The juggling act was to make sure we did T-shirts that anybody could see and just instantly think of Doctor Who. So there was still a mainstream appeal as well as that fan appeal. Like people like me and you, Alex, would love this, this range of product because we get completely those moments. Whereas my mum, for example, would look at Jelly Baby and just think that's a great one for a Doctor Who fan, and her secondary thought would be, "Oh, wasn't that a Tom Baker quote?" Without specifically knowing the ins and outs of the background of that quote. So it was quite an interesting juggling act.
So so there you go. So we've got Tom again, and again the logo. Obviously, the curator didn't have a logo, but we took his fourth and changed it, made it a bit more sort of the colours to match his suit, and that's the curator. The rest of the curator range, and there's like t-shirt and sweatshirts go with it.
Oh, I love that.
And what I haven't said yet is these numbers, for anyone that's wondering. 100 pieces out of this whole range of 200 odd pieces of merch are numbered, so they're not limited in numbers, they're limited in time. And if you want everything on the packaging or on the art print, for instance, it will say this is number 93 of the Diamond collection. So there's 100 pieces. We will release a checklist, like the good old like bubblegum card type things where you used to get your checklist card. So if you want to collect them all, it's kind of like, and some things, as I say, are convention exclusives, which we got a bit of stick about, but it's kind of like, well, again, it was decisions I had to make that made things special. If it was just, hey, here's some stuff for a convention and it'll come out later in the year, great, you can have it early, but there's it's something in this world now that conventions have their exclusives. Everyone that picked up the stuff from MCM that just couldn't believe it, and I got a bit of stick online, but it's kind of like, well, we're always going to, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to get that. But yeah, so that's what these numbers are for everyone watching, and the other pieces I've shown.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Wow.
And I think what can I show you that's not going to spoil anything? Okay, so I'll show you some other monsters that we've got coming out.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So these badges are kind of like 30 mil to 40 mil, depending. Like the Mara is a slightly bigger 40 mil high, but yeah. So there's your Omega. Sutek, and there's a glow in the dark version.
No,
I love this. I love this design. And so t-shirt wise, that whole thing of the kind of not everyone likes a white t-shirt, and it's like, well, certain other, like the red obviously fits this perfectly, the grey, right, chocolate grey for the Yeti. So we have mixed up the colors on stuff, so it's not just straight black t-shirts. But what can I show you? And I'll show you one other, which was a real deep cut that everyone I've shown is like, brilliant.
Oh,
now,
yay.
Have you ever seen any Rani merch? It's kind of like, no, really. And yeah, so we've got t-shirt and enamel badge with some nice little things like the elemental TH and RA. So yeah, we've really gone, and these monsters are ranged like 4 and 5, and there's a few others in there that I haven't shown you, but yeah, there's a lot coming out over the year. So and that's not including anything else that I might get from the BBC. Sometimes they're like, hey, we've got this piece of artwork, would you like it? And I've had exclusives on artwork before. The new logo, that came out, the blue version of, we had that on t-shirts at MCM, and they sold out on the first day, and that was an exclusive to us. The BBC were really, because they're so behind us with all this and what we've done, we're like, hey, do you want this? It's like, cool. So we put it on a shirt, sold out in the first day. in hindsight, I'm like, wow, I could have taken like 3 times as much. But those people that bought that shirt are the only ones in the world to have an official new logo shirt.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so that's the faith that the BBC have had in, over the year, myself and Anthony, and in, Titan merch and Forbidden Planet for this range, because they've seen, like I said earlier, the passion and the love that we put into it.
Alex, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can get some samples of some of this stuff out to you. Nudge, nudge, Jay. Take care of yourself. It's been great watching the channel grow, and hopefully it continues to over the 60th.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me and for being a part of this interview.
So that's a slightly more than a brief overview for what we've got, but there's a lot more surprises, we've got coming. And say some of this stuff has, it's the first time it's publicly been seen. So if I see it on Etsy, I'll know that it's
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for giving us those sneak peeks and such an incredible look at this range. Thank you for all the hard work that you put into it, for the incredible joy that you're going to bring all of us as we go from, this month onwards all the way up to the 60th. It's really, really exciting to see this. I'm so excited to be able to share this with everybody, to get the sneak previews myself. And so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Thank you for getting in touch and having us on. And I shall sort you out some merch, so you'll get a few exclusives before they come out. So
thank you. That would be so amazing. You'll see those unboxings on the channel. Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate it. And as always, keep growing your knowledge collection and connection with other Doctor Who fans, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.